Composting is the ultimate way to recycle any of your garden waste and kitchen waste. But there are a few composting basics that you need to know. So let's get started with Composting 101. There's lots of different composting methods out there, but my preferred method is the 2 plastic bin composting method, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But before we get started, my number one tip is to make sure that you have your composting system right near your back door or kitchen door, and that way it's not so much of a hike to bring out the kitchen scraps. So hiding back here, I've got my 2 plastic compost bins, and I love these plastic ones because they keep everything neat and contained. I also have 2 so that I'm filling up one while I'm allowing the other one to compost down, and it'll be ready for the garden. It's time to add some greens into this compost. That's any kitchen scraps, but not meat or grains, and any green garden clippings and weeds. Just make sure that the weeds don't have any seed heads on them. These spiral stirrers are great for helping to aerate and mix up your compost. The more you can aerate it, the faster it'll break down. And when I do this, you can see all the little worms that are in there ready to break down those kitchen scraps and green waste scraps. As you can see, this compost here is pretty active and it's loaded with microbes and earthworms. But if it wasn't so active, or if I was starting out my new compost bin, then I'd be adding in some eco seaweed. This stuff is wonderful at helping to activate your compost and really give it a kickstart. So just mix some into a watering can and water a little bit over your compost. And actually adding it like this is also a great thing to do if you spot that your compost is a little bit too dry. Adding some moisture with eco seaweed in it will really help. All right, so we've added in our greens, but about every second or third time that I add in a bucket of kitchen waste scraps, I want to make sure that I add in some browns, because having that mix of green and browns is really important. It helps things to break down and not get too mushy and soggy. Things like shreddings from your paper shredder are brilliant. You can also just get plain old newspaper and shred that up like this and pop some of that in. Or you can get unwaxed cardboard. Things like egg cartons are brilliant. Just tear it up into small strips and add that in as well. And my other top tip is to make sure you have right next to your compost bins a waterproof tub like this one. In here I store any of my browns, so they're right on hand and I can add them as I need them. And if you've ever come to your compost bin, opened the lid and been whacked by a really disgusting vinegary type smell, then your compost is too acidic and things are not going to break down in that environment. So there's a really simple way that you can fix it. All you need to do, grab your trusty watering can again, and this time pop in some eco dolomite or some eco lime. Both of these will help correct that acidity and bring the compost back into a nice neutral pH range where all the microbes are happy and active. Well, this bin is set and ready to break down. It's nearly filled up to the top. And when it is, I'm going to start the second compost bin, and then the whole cycle begins again. So if you've never had much success with compost, or you've been a bit of a composting klutz, then follow these simple tips and you'll be composting in no time.